But to see these dads really coming together and having conversations that is pretty clear wouldn't be happening on their own. We're creating an environment where dads are coming together and having conversations about being a dad and how you care for a child and all these other things that, most of the time in our society, we could have really good friends. We don't really have that depth of conversation or that intimacy in the conversation around these things. So that to me is a real joy to see.
Welcome to the Fathering Strong podcast. Each week, we have an interesting conversation with dads, fatherhood practitioners, and experts on matters of importance to men and fathers. Thanks for joining us. With today's episode, here's your Fathering Strong podcast host, Eli Williams.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the new edition of the Fathering Strong podcast. So glad that you're with us today. I'm Eli Williams, and with me today is Jeff Kramer. We're going to have an interesting conversation with a young man that I've gotten to know over the years as we are colleagues and both members of the Ohio Practitioners Network for Fathers and Families. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Eli. I'm excited to have a great conversation today.
Well, we're delighted to have you. And you're not in your usual place in Columbus, Ohio, where you work for Action for Children. You're someplace else today. You want to talk about that just a moment so that everyone is aware and perhaps can say a prayer.
Thank you. So I have an 81-year-old mother I love dearly. She had an accident. Well, you can call it an accident. She was actually on a Pilates machine, which anybody that knows Pilates, it's not a lot of 81-year-olds doing that. But she had a mishap and fell through the machine and broke both shoulders. So anyone that can identify with what that might be like. So I jumped on a plane to come out and to help my sister, who is also here. So the two of us are in Tucson, Arizona. It is beautiful, sunny, 80 degrees today. But that's what's happening out here.
You're a good son, Jeff.
Well, thank you.
That sounds like a lawsuit. That sounds like a lawsuit to me.
No, it's not. It's not. It's a spring that wasn't connected. So no, it was human error. But no,
Okay.
this is great. She's doing great. She's recovering as well as could be expected. And this is a great little way for me to take a break from caretaking and have a conversation. So,
all right. Well, let's stay with parenting for a moment. Tell us about your life growing up. I assume it's in the Kramer household.
Yes.
What was life like for little Jeffy? All right. What was your relationship like with your parents, especially your father?
Yeah, it was great. So both mom and dad were married for 50 plus years. My dad passed about 10 years ago now. So growing up, my father was a newspaper man. So he was all the way up from a beat reporter to an editor. An executive editor at the paper here in Tucson called the Arizona Daily Star. So at one point early on, he was a sports reporter, sports editor. So as a young man, my dad did a press release when I was born. I wish I had that photo with me here handy, but it's me. This is in Southern California at that time. So my dad was covering the Dodgers. Go Dodgers, by the way. He did a little press release, little fake press release with a picture of me with a Dodger cap and a glove, with a whole little write up about, my size and weight and, as a rookie, all that good stuff. So he was in newspaper business his entire life, for all those different positions. He was a sports editor for many years at times and then moved into other departments in editing. What that meant was he worked evenings, for younger folks. This newspaper thing might be foreign, but it used to be, you had your deadlines to get these stories in so that they could print it to get it out at 5 a.m. the next day. That's changed a lot now. But so he would be working evenings. My mom was a teacher, elementary school teacher. So she would be working during the days while we were at school. My dad would then go to work in the evenings. So it was fantastic. He was really involved. I played sports growing up. My sister played sports growing up. She was much better than I was, but my dad was really involved in that end. Really had a coaching side of him. He loved to we'd be running pass routes in the yard. We'd be, playing basketball, shooting hoops. So it was a lot of, what you might think of as a very engaged father who was very invested in his kids.
Oh, that's good to hear. Good to hear. Well, what was it like having a sister who was more athletic than you?
Yeah, it was. I'm guessing on some levels it made me better. But yeah, it was. She's a 2 years older than me, so it was frustrating. And as a young man, I did not control my temper as well as I would have liked. So yes, getting your butt beat by your older sister on the basketball court was definitely something. Took some getting used to. But
Yeah.
she was good. She was an all-state type of athlete. I was
Wow.
not all anything. So she certainly had the genes when it came to that.
Well, the good thing is it was an older sister beating you up, not a younger sister.
Yes, that is true. And like I said, she was very good. So it wasn't like you're getting beat by someone who just learned the game. Yeah, she was
Right.
very, very good.
Yeah. Well, that's good that you had a great relationship with your dad. Is your dad still living?
No, my dad passed about 10 years ago.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sorry for that, but you've got
Right.
fond memories,
Oh, yes.
which is not something that, as you know, everyone can say about their
Sure.
relationship with their father. So good
Yeah,
for
I
you.
feel blessed to have had a great relationship with my father. And yeah, we've got a lot of great memories.
And you are a father yourself. So tell us about that journey.
Yeah, so I have a beautiful 22-year-old daughter, Kate. Um, uh, I did not become a father early. I think 37 when Kate was born. So I waited. I was, a little bit more mature than a lot of my uh, peers. Um, but married. At the time, we are now separated or divorced, but we're separated pretty early on in her life. Um, but Kate is the joy of my life. She's just a fantastic young college student right now. Um, and yeah, I've really kind of oriented my this phase of my life around her. Over the last 10 or 12 years, really uh, kind of uh, shifted things around to just be in her life in the best way possible.
So, what has been your greatest challenge in co-parenting a girl?
Well, I will say um, her mother and I have been really good co-parents. I mean, we were both very clear um, that she would come first in everything. And so I know that's not always, you and I both know that's not always the case. It's not always that
Right.
cut and
Yeah.
dried for folks, but for us it was. It was a mutual decision to divorce, and we thought long and hard and met with counselors and so on to go through the process to see really what the impacts would be. And I will say, uh, as it turned out, it's been a great thing for Kate. She's had loving parents, two homes. Um, we work together, so that's been really good. As far as challenge, I think it's what most people would imagine. You have, different, potentially different ways of doing stuff. We're certainly different folks, um, but
Yeah.
but things that are adversity also makes you stronger. And I think any adversity that we had ultimately at this point in our lives, in the Kate's life, she's better for it. We worked through any differences we had as far as parenting and co-parenting, and always were able to come to kind of a mutual agreement on how we're moving forward. So I feel very fortunate. And her mother and I have talked about this. We're still, we're very good friends. We're still close. She's been remarried for many years. I get along great with Kate's stepfather. So I feel very fortunate for my situation, although I know, that is not always the normal.
Yeah, unfortunately. So, of all of the experiences as a dad, a girl dad at that, what has been your
Yeah.
greatest joy?
Oh, so, um, my greatest joy is just Kate's um, just orientation of life. She's such a sweet soul, just a really good, sweet person. And so it just makes me smile to think about how, how she couldn't, there's just not a mean-spirited bone in her. And I just love that about her. So it's hard for me to pin down one thing. She was a very good athlete, very all state golfer, but really great student, ridiculous scores on tests that clearly she got from her mother. But I think for me, my greatest joy is just who she is as a person, her soul. She's just sweet, just a sweetheart. I get emotional even thinking about it and talking about
Yeah.
it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So let's turn the page and talk
Mhm.
about your work in the fatherhood space. You actually work with dads,
Yeah.
and so tell our audience about that, who you work for, and the nature of the work that you do.
Yeah. So I work for a nonprofit agency in Columbus, Ohio. It is called Action for Children. It has lots of programs. I happen to work in kind of the community. We call the family and community engagement side of our agency, and that's where we do a lot of parenting programs. I'm in the fatherhood area. We have Help Me Grow and kindergarten readiness programs there. The other side of our agency is all early child care center related. We do a lot of trainings and certifications and TA work for centers to get their accreditations. So it's a fairly large agency, between 90 and 100 folks in our agency. I have been always in fatherhood with Action for Children. And I came to it really, um, by chance. I've done a lot of other things. I had done social work way back. I have a degree in psychology and so on. But I moved out of that when I came out to the Midwest and got into kind of distribution and sales entities. So I did a lot of that stuff. So came back around and really wanted to get back into something that really spoke to me and my values. And so I started work for Action for Children about 11, 12 years ago now. Facilitating fatherhood groups. Had no idea, had never done that before. It was terrifying the first few times, but it really felt good. It felt right. I loved how I would feel after a session with dads. And from there, became an employee, took over the program and so on. But I really, really love this work. As you know, Eli, it's just so rewarding to anyone that works with people in human services knows this feeling. And to be in a very specific thing around dads, it's such a joy. So been doing
Yeah.
that for about 12 years and love it.
So in what settings do you work with these dads? Is it in your own facility, or do you go out to other places and do these programs?
Both, yeah. So we have had up to 4 different fatherhood programs going at different times. Again, in the nonprofit world, you have cycles of grants that come and go, so things are always fluid. But we have programs that go into incarcerated settings, either at the jail level or the CBCF's community level, or even prisons. We also have community work where we're just having dads come to our location and we're doing workshops because of COVID and the pandemic. We're doing a lot of online stuff like a lot of folks. So there was a big transition there. But everything that we do is workshop driven. So that's what's unique about it. We're not necessarily doing seminars or presentations. We usually will work in cohorts in multiple sessions and take dads through it. So if you can envision kind of everything that it takes to be a parent and specifically a father, where we're talking more than just the parenting, but also the father himself and, being in a position to parent. We've got multiple sessions that we go through and, we'll spend anywhere from 12 to 24 hours with a dad in workshops, depending on the program.
Are those dads mandated to be there, or do you have a mix of participants in your
Yeah,
program?
it's varied over the years. We don't really have anyone that's mandated. And really mandated is nobody can make folks go somewhere. They can strongly suggest it. But no, it's a lot of times it will be at the advice of maybe a guardian ad litem or an attorney or a magistrate saying this would be a good idea for you. I think you should do this. But by and large, I would say probably 85-90% of the fathers that we work with now are just voluntary. They're coming because they want to be a better dad. They want to address a situation that maybe isn't working for them. It's a lot of that, as you're well aware. A lot of it is, this situation is not working. I can't see my child as much as I want to, or so on. And so what can I do to address that?
Yeah, I ask because I'm thinking back to some of the experiences I have had. This is not about me, but just that question of mandated or just strongly suggested. I've had some of those strongly suggested men in our in sessions, and in some cases, a guy would be very much against, didn't want to be there. So those first couple of sessions, they're scowling and they're not really participating. But
Sure.
by that third session, there's a switch that's flipped, and they realize, hey, I'm really getting something out of this. This is good, and then they're great after that.
Yeah, and I hope we have a chance to talk a little bit about that piece, whether not necessarily whether it's mandated or not, but that shift that you see, or that opening that happens. A lot of times for us, I mean, I see it in the first session. So hopefully we can chat a little bit about that, because I think it's a really important part of fatherhood. In my experience, is the environment that's created.
Yep, exactly. So, how much are you able to use your training in psychology?
Well, I think it gave me a real good baseline. It was many years ago. I graduated, in the late '80s, early '90s type of space. So, but yeah, I think just the general knowledge of just psychology and how how humans act and react and so on, I think has been helpful. But I would say by and large, the biggest factor that I sense, again, I didn't get into this at a young age. So for me, it's just really life's knowledge and, and lessons that I carry with me at this point. I think it's really helpful, particularly to the younger fathers that we work with.
My guest today is Jeff Kramer, and he is with Action for Children. We're going to talk to him about Father Up on the other side of this break, and I'm going to ask you about your challenges and rewards of working with fathers. Stay with us. This is the Fathering Strong podcast. We'll be right back.
A recent survey of the greatest needs of fathers determined that many of them want to learn how to be the best dads they can be. This includes seeking advice on fatherhood, parenting skills, and understanding their role in a child's life. We're happy to announce the new Fathering Strong book and suite of resources that includes a workbook, 30-day devotional and journal, and workshop materials. Written by Fathering Strong's Bruce Stapleton, this package provides everything you need for your personal growth as the spiritual leader of your home. Get more information at thefatheringstrongbook.com. Purchase the materials wherever books are sold.
Thanks for being with us today on the Fathering Strong podcast. Eli Williams, my guest. Today is Jeff Kramer, who works out of Columbus, Ohio, but is currently in Arizona doing some son duty with an ailing mother. Thank you so much, for sacrificing some time, Jeff, out of what I'm sure is a very difficult time for you. We appreciate it so much.
Thanks, Eli.
So you shared about the work that you do with dads there with Action for Children, and the question I'm wondering about is, what have you found to be the most challenging part of working with fathers?
I think the most challenging part is that you can only do so much, right? So I think a lot of folks in social work, in case management oriented spaces, will experience this. I had case managed in mental health previous to getting into fatherhood. You typically you get into this type of field for reasons that are personal. It feels right. It's, you want to work with folks, you want to help folks. And so life is challenging, it's difficult. And so I think that's the most challenging thing for me is that, you'd like to be able to do more. But at the same time, you teach folks to fish. That's the idea here is that you want to get a parent prepared to be able to, to parent, and just as they want their children to regulate themselves rather than them having to regulate them. So but it is still a temptation to want to try and do more for folks. And that can be frustrating.
What are the top 2 or 3 or 4 things that these dads are challenged with as you are working with them?
Well, let me clarify that. So when you say they're challenged with, meaning why do they initiate with us, or what are their challenges as a parent or a father?
Yeah, both. What are their obstacles? What are the things that they need to overcome to be the best dad that they can be, to be present, and all of the other?
Yeah, so I think what first comes to mind is what I really lean into in with our curriculum and our workshops. The first thing we talk about is our guiding principles, and the first one of those is you don't know what you don't know. Flip side of that is you know what you know. So I think the biggest challenge is, what you've experienced growing up or what you happen to experience growing up really shapes how you parent initially, and it's not until you begin to inform yourself and learn and make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and make corrections. I think it's, we talk about it. That's the second guiding principle, that mistakes are not only okay, they're normal. Like that's kind of how life is. But as a parent, a lot of us think that it's a different standard. Like I can't make a mistake, but no, you absolutely can make mistakes. You want to learn from it. So I think that's the big thing for fathers. They're challenged with just, nobody comes out the gate as an amazing parent. Those that seem to be an amazing parent, they probably had a lot of folks around them that were modeling and supporting and teaching them before they were on their own as a parent. So I think that's a big thing. On the other side of that is a lot of fathers that come to fatherhood. They have something that they're trying to work on, and many times that might be they're no longer with mother, child, or mothers of children, and they're not getting kind of the fatherhood experience that they'd like in their access to children and so on. So a lot of times it is in that space of, I'm not able to see my child as much as I'd like, or maybe I'm not able to see my child at all. So that's a big place that fatherhood supports and helps, helps father gain the skills and in many ways, patience to kind of navigate that very challenging circumstance.
And you work for a big agency, so there's a good chance that you have got other departments, other programs under your umbrella that you can refer these men to.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have other programs that I'm responsible for myself. But yes, you're right. Like I said, we have Help Me Grow. We have kindergarten readiness programs. We have I just got a message today with a gentleman that's looking for childcare for his child. Well, it's great to have in-house information and referral program for childcare. So yeah, it is a definite benefit to have anywhere from 18 to 20 something programs at any time that action for children's around you.
Yeah, that's really good. So talk to us some about Father Up. Now this is one of the programs, one of the father programs. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I'm really proud of Father Up, Eli. So this is, when I started 12 years ago in fatherhood, we had a good curriculum. I enjoyed it, but it was from 2010, and here we are in the 2025 going into 2026, and so there were some things that needed to be updated. So we kind of morphed into Father Up, which again I'm really proud of, and it's gotten a lot of traction in Central Ohio. A lot of dads we've had. I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me. We probably worked with well over 5,000 fathers in the last 7-8 years in Central Ohio, and you can imagine all the children that are impacted by that. So Father Up is a holistic fatherhood service, and what that means is we're working with with fathers on case management needs. So what are your goals? What are your challenges and barriers? What do you want to try and do? We're going to set a plan and we're going to help you kind of navigate through that. We're also working a lot in the kind of career space, right? So employment, better employment, furthering education, those types of things to try and help dads that are in more unstable economic situations, or they're just kind of going in a circle with temp work, right? So that's a big space in fatherhood. We want you to, to be able to take a step back and breathe and look at what your options are here. And then the final thing is that education, that skills, parenting skills. And that's really, again, workshop driven in a cohort and very much peer conversation. That's a big part of what we do. So those three type of pillars of the work are really what Father Up is, like, many other fatherhood programs that I'm familiar with as well. That's a whole wraparound type of service.
So do you work with fathers who are straight out of or recently out of prison?
Yeah. And unfortunately, particularly in an urban setting where I am, we do see quite a bit of that. But yes, we have guys that are in reentry space. Even if they're not in reentry space, again, a lot of folks, as you can imagine, that would be interested in these types of services have needs, and so that is very common for us to see folks that have some challenges, and they're looking to be a better dad. They're looking to have a better relationship with their child or their co-parents, and that's what we exist for, and that's what we take a lot of pride in, is supporting folks and educating through that.
Now, in working within that population, do you partner with ex-offender or reentry programs, or do you do all that in-house yourself?
Well, I think it'd be difficult to do everything in-house. I think we partner in whatever we're doing. We're partnering with lots of, and that's a great thing, again, about being a larger agency and being around for a while, is that you develop partnerships across your community. So, we have, when you're talking reentry, here in Columbus, there is a First Step, which is the first Friday of every month, which is a bunch of resources come together. And this is organized through the Departments of Corrections and Probation. They're bringing all kinds of providers into one space, and then they will bring in folks that are near reentry or near release, and kind of let them go around and meet all the different folks, and every possible resource that you can think about when you're coming back into society. So yeah, we have lots of partners there. We have great partners, in all sectors: mental health, benefits, employment, all of those types of things. It would be very difficult to do that all on our own, for sure.
Absolutely. Is that would be the Franklin County Job and Family Services. How have you found them as partners?
Great. So now we have the Department of Children and Youth is what's really been created in the DeWine administration, which is now housing a lot of these departments and agencies too, which it's been a very good thing. It's still a work in progress as far as anytime you have a statewide agency or entity, it doesn't move on a dime, for sure. But yes, it's been great. I think, DCY's initiatives are very parallel with what we do in Action for Children. So, they're looking at kindergarten readiness, infant mortality, and trying to reduce folks in the foster system. Those are their kind of three initiatives. And we're in all three of those spaces at Action for Children. And in fatherhood, you're certainly looking at infant mortality and kindergarten readiness pretty much 24/7 in the work that we're doing. And then the foster care is a little piece of it as well.
So as we are having this conversation today, there is a federal government shutdown going on. How is that impacting your work?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, Eli. I can't say professionally that it's impacting me directly, that I have seen, and it could be. I left a week ago to come out and look after my mother, but it, I think it's more of just an overall level. It's distressing, We certainly see the numbers of folks that are out of work and are being, put into hardship. I think there's other things going on or on the periphery of that certainly are impacting us. But I cannot say that the shutdown has directly impacted the programs that I'm involved in.
So your funding is not so far reduced or anything like that, or
No, I
cut off.
think that's why I say the periphery. I think regardless of the shutdown, our funding has been impacted. We have less funding throughout our agency than we did a year ago, and that has a lot to do with a federal approach, not the shutdown, but just a federal approach to research and nonprofits and funding and so on. But yeah, I can't say I've connected it to the shutdown, but the longer it goes on, I'm sure. I got to catch a plane back to Ohio here pretty soon, and that's getting a little dicier every day.
Even that it could eventually be impact. Let's hope that comes to a good end here soon.
Yeah.
I'm going to take another break, Jeff, and when we come back, I would like for you to share with us the rewards that you have received because of your work in the fatherhood space. Jeff Kramer is my guest today. This is the Fathering Strong podcast, and we'll return to our conversation after this timeout.
Fathering Strong informs, engages, and empowers dads to be their best as fathers. Visit our website, fatheringstrong.com, for a wealth of resources, including informative videos, articles, books, devotionals, courses, research, and more. The Fathering Strong mobile app is a platform that empowers dads to connect with each other for mutual encouragement and support. Download it for free at fatheringstrong.com. And now, back to our conversation on the Fathering Strong podcast.
Welcome back, friends. I'm Eli Williams. Jeff Kramer is my guest today, and he is a fatherhood practitioner, and a good one at that. In fact, I think I'd probably say one of the best in Ohio, who is a future president or chairman of Ohio Practitioners Network for Fathers and Families. I'm working on you. Thanks so much, Jeff, for being with us today.
Thanks, Eli.
Working the kind of work that you're doing, working with fathers, I'm sure has its challenges, which you are more than up for. What has been the rewards for you personally and career-wise, and even on a personal level in working with dads?
Yeah, I think on the personal level, I mean, I'm just a better person for it. I've done a lot of things over the years. I didn't get into this, out the gate. I did social work, back when I was younger, and then got into the private sector, did a lot of things. But one of the things that I realized through, kind of life and sales and so on, first, it's not really who I am. But, in life, we do things and make choices, and we feel like we have to do this or that. But at some point I sat down, and actually my sister is who really helped me through this, is kind of making a list of pros and cons of what do you want. And really, it was the first time in my life I'd sat down and thought, what is it that I want in a career? And that was as detailed as, you want to work inside or outside? Do you want to work around a bunch of people or solo? Do you want to, so it was really this whole process to go through. And what came out of that, Eli, is that what I was really missing and what became really apparent is I wanted to work with folks who had shared values. I was in fields where, Jeff, we like Jeff's a good guy, but it's really, what have you done for me lately kind of thing. And there's a lot of stuff out there, that we can get jobs where it really is a lot of pressure to just, keep producing something. And that's what you were valued on. And that just didn't feed my soul. So I think, on a very personal level, I feel I love the work that I do. And it makes me feel like a better human being, and a better friend and, son and father. On a professional level, the joy is really teaching skills, talking about skills, listening to fathers, have conversations. And then the next time you get together, having one of the fathers or more than one of the fathers talk about how they tried what we had talked about and what the results. And it's just such a joy to see, folks really engaging and going through the process of trying a strategy, and which, at the time could have been completely foreign. I know it would have been to me. until I got into this field, some of these strategies that we work on. So to me, that's a joy that jumps out, is just seeing fathers trying, to implement and execute some of the things that we're talking about in groups. The other thing that is really nice to see is the bond that is created with the fathers. We really talk about the brotherhood of fatherhood. It really is a sense of community. And I hope we have a minute to chat about that, because that's a big piece for me. Particularly, in the last couple of years, I've really started to recognize this. But to see these dads really coming together and having conversations that is pretty clear wouldn't be happening on their own. We're creating an environment where dads are coming together and having conversations about being a dad and how you care for a child and all these other things that most of the time in our society, myself included, we could have really good friends, but we don't really have that depth of conversation or that intimacy in the conversation around these things. So that to me is a real joy to see.
So you get a dad coming to you, and you find out that he has, let's say, violent tendencies, right? Or maybe there's been some violence in his relationship with the mother of his child. What do you do with that? I mean, because you can only teach so much out of a book, right? What do you do?
Yeah, so it's there's a complex situation, but just for the sake of conversation, I think really there's a few things that happen here. Most of the folks that I think are in those situations, nobody's born that way, right? So it starts with attitudes and beliefs, and it moves from there, right? So this is the pyramid of violence. Anyone that's any of your listeners that are familiar with kind of domestic violence awareness and education, this will sound familiar. There's power and control wheels, and there's a lot of stuff that we do that we learn, and you're not setting out to learn some of these behaviors, right? It happens. We do a whole piece with a colleague of ours, a good friend of ours, Mr. Glenn Harris, who's in that space.
We've had him on. I had that in mind when I brought it up. So go for it.
He's a good friend, really talented gentleman. But we really started looking at, how do we have these conversations that you're talking about when we do have someone that, may have had an incident or incidences of aggression or violence. And we really break it down on this level of, what happens with young boys and what are the messages coming at young boys and what are the pressures on us as young men, just from the, be a man statement or boys don't cry. These are things that are very commonplace. But I experienced it clearly growing up, but it has an impact when you're being told from the earliest age that you don't cry, that, you got to be a man. Well, it keeps evolving to this point of, the only thing you're allowed to do is be angry or express anger, like that's an okay emotion, but feeling vulnerable or ashamed or, any of these other emotions that you can have out there, those are not acceptable. So you don't show those. And what we know happens is that, what you don't use, you lose. And so these skills go away. And so your reaction is something that you might feel embarrassed. Well, that's anger. And then you can do the math. I mean, what happens is then, you're disrespecting me and this is how it's going to play out. So in my mind, it really is getting some awareness around this. The other piece that I mentioned here a moment ago that comes into play in these situations in the group is that the group kind of redirects folks or teaches a lesson without even having to say something. When a guy will, be open enough or vulnerable enough to share something, and then you see the reaction of the group and how they deal with it. That a lot of times as a facilitator, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
The little mini society you have right there takes care of it. So I really do think that it's really about awareness and education. And it's also, when I say awareness, it's really that light bulb. Like I never thought about why I might, and when I was a younger man, I certainly had said things and, that I wouldn't dare think about now because I know better, but that's the whole thing, know better, do better, be better is what that campaign is we work with Glenn Harris. But it really is about that space of just knowing why maybe I act this way, why do I feel like I need to whistle and, do these other things that could be, a starter of other things. So So it's really, I think it's those two pieces for me. It's just education awareness, and then the group setting, the cohort setting, I think is a real help in this. They're not alone. They have other guys to support them and to help them process through it.
All right, we're kind of rounding third here.
All right.
Let me ask you what you foresee, or what do you hope to happen as regarding the work that you're doing over the next 5 years. 5 years from now, what do you hope will have been accomplished?
Oh boy. Well, Eli, you know enough about me. We were just talking about this when we were meeting earlier on a different matter. But yeah, I have a hard time sitting still and just okay, we're gonna keep doing this. So I'm always kind of in this space of, all right, how do we build? How do we create? What's going on in the community? How can we be there to do something? So I think 5 years from now, I would hope that that the work we're doing at Father Up is continuing to evolve. I'd love to see it, out there being used. I think combining that with what we just talked about, these this know better, do better, be better piece of the pressures on young men and boys to act certain ways, to present and front, right, for lack of a better word. I think that if we could get some more education around how devastating that can be, and I just think that just to continue to do the work that we're doing in fatherhood and impact more families. We've got Father Up. We'll probably add some sessions. I know you're always looking to share your knowledge in different ways, and I think it's the same for me. How can we do something that is unique and thoughtful from a very fatherhood type of space? And that's what I'd like to see over the next 5 years from Father Up and myself.
Well, I'm confident that you're going to achieve everything you set out to do. Just looking at the body of work that you've contributed to this field over the last 10, 12 years is pretty impressive. Jeff Kramer, my guest today on the Fathering Strong podcast. Thank you so much, Jeff, for taking the time out of your busy life, busier than usual these days, to spend it here with us on the Fathering Strong podcast. We do appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Eli. Always good to have time with you, and I enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much.
And thank you, listening friends. Join us for the next installment of the Fathering Strong podcast.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Fathering Strong podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, were inspired, challenged, and encouraged. By subscribing, you won't miss an episode, as you'll receive notifications of each new posting. Go to the Fathering Strong YouTube channel to subscribe. For an informative weekly read, sign up for the Fathering Strong blog posts. Find them at urbanlight.org. Fathering Strong is powered by Urban Light Ministries, a nonprofit Christian organization that has been serving families for nearly 30 years. Charitable gifts by people like you enable us to offer resources free of charge. Go to www.urbanlight.org to give. Thank you. Join us for the next installment of the Fathering Strong podcast.